Part 6, Chapter 25. By 1984, the guys were fully dedicated to their music. By then, Tommy was 30. Clyde and Herbert were 32, and Vernon was 34. So many things had changed in their lives. Tommy married a woman in Virginia and had a son. Clyde was still unmarried, but we'll get into that issue in a minute. But first, let's go here. It was July 1984, and the guys had just come off their tour. Vernon picked up his 1983 BMW from the parking lot of the studio. Norman had moved the location to Maryland some years back because D.C. was getting so bad with crime that he did not want to continue taking risks and having his artists put at risk or in danger. The old warehouse on Benning Road Northeast now sat empty and abandoned. Norman had sold the property, and it was no longer his problem. All Vernon wanted to do was get in the shower and fall into bed. His oldest daughter was now 12, and the twins were 10. They were spending the summer with their grandmother, and Vernon had asked Jennifer to hit the road with him, but she always hated being on the road. When he entered his driveway of his Montgomery County home, he noticed something strange. A black Buick was in his driveway. Whose car was parked behind her BMW? He got out of the car and grabbed his luggage and headed into the house. The place was quiet. He set his luggage by the door and headed up the carpeted stairs. The door of the master bedroom was shut. Before he opened the door, he heard it. Sounds of something forbidden. Sounds of adultery. Tears stung his eyes. He hesitated before turning the knob and confirming what he heard. He had to catch his breath. He closed his eyes. Once he opened the door, she saw him before the man did. They jumped out of bed, and the man said,
"What? Who is this?"
Vernon stood still, trying to mentally assess the situation, and then he found his voice. Anger rose within him before he lunged for the naked man. They wrestled, and Vernon ended up on top, punching the man several times.
I'm her husband. I'm her husband. I'm her husband. I'm her husband.
Man,
I didn't know.
Finally, Vernon was tired. He pulled himself up,
Vernon,
hurried downstairs and out the door.
Vernon, 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 Vernon.
He did not quit driving until he ended up all the way in Southeast, where Clyde still lived. He banged on the door. Clyde opened, alarmed.
What's up? I thought you went home.
Vernon came right in and paced the floor, trying to collect his thoughts. He wondered how he was able to make it all the way down the Beltway into Clyde's house without having a car accident. All the money and fame could not make his wife happy. He found it hard to collect his breath.
What's going on, Vern? Vernon, what happened?
Jennifer.
What?
Jennifer.
Is she okay?
It's Jennifer, man.
Vern.
Jennifer.
What about her?
Man.
Vern.
That's when tears poured from his face, and he said,
Everything I ever done. Everything was for her and my girls, man. And this is the thanks that I get. I did everything I could do, man. I did everything I could do.
He sat on the sofa, put his hands over his face, and cried.
What happened? Vern, talk to me, man. What happened? Vern, what happened? She was in bed with another nigga when I came home.
That news went right to Clyde's chest. He could actually feel every ounce of his best friend's pain.
Are you sure? Listen, I handed him his behind. Can't believe she did this. Dang. Man, that is messed up. This is so messed up. Man, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Vern. Clyde! I love this woman. I loved her. I know. Man, I love her. You know I know you did. I love her. Y'all been together almost 20 years, man. 20 years y'all been together.
Clyde allowed his friend to pour out. This had to be hard for any man to deal with.
She knew you was coming home. Why did she do that? Remember, we was able to get an earlier flight. We weren't supposed to be back until 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. I didn't get a chance to tell her. I wouldn't have thought it mattered. You understand what I'm saying?
Clyde had never seen his friend in so much pain before.
Yeah, I know. It shouldn't matter. No. Unless she's in there getting tossed up by some other dude. Man, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, man. What are you gonna do?
Vernon hadn't even thought beyond the pain he was feeling.
Man, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know.
Clyde got up to answer the phone. Vernon heard him say,
"Oh, hey Jennifer, what's up?"
When Vernon heard her name, he mouthed silently, "I'm not here."
No, he's not here. If he comes, I'll tell him you called.
Once he hung up, he turned back to Vernon and said,
"So you don't want to talk to her? For what? What's there to talk about? What? I know what you mean. Well, if you want to crash here tonight, you know it's cool. I got that extra bedroom upstairs." "Thanks, man. You know I got you. And I was going to tell you my news, but well, you can tell me. What happened?" "I got some chick stalking me." "What?" "Yeah, sending me her underwear in the mail." "Who is it? Some crazy fan?" "Probably." "You better handle that, Clyde. Women can be crazy. Or sneaky."
Chapter 26. Herbert had just left Mississippi Avenue and made a right turn when he spotted blue lights in his rearview mirror. It was almost 9 at night. He pulled over and dropped a small bag he had onto the floor and tried to shove it under the driver's seat with the heel of his foot. The cop shined a light in his face and said,
"License and registration, please."
Herbert searched nervously into his wallet and handed the officer the documents. The officer shined his light on the license and said,
"Herbert Hill." "Yes, officer." "D. Herbert Hill, of the Midnight Velvets?" Yeah. "What are you doing out here?"
He was in an area called Valley Green. In the mid-1980s, Valley Green was one of the most drug-infested areas in the city.
"I was visiting a friend." "What's the friend's name?"
Herbert did not know the man's name he bought the substance from, so he lied and said,
"Mike." "Mike? Mike who?" "I don't know his last name, officer. I just know him as Mike." "You don't know his last name, but your friend?" "Yeah, well, we actually just met."
The officer nodded slightly. His face showed he was not convinced, so he spoke into his radio.
"Charlie 132 to dispatch."
"Charlie 132, go ahead."
"I need assistance for a traffic stop at 3200 block of Mississippi Avenue in Stanton."
Herbert grew nervous and said,
What did I do, officer? What did I do? What did
Charlie
I do,
136 en route
What
to
did I
Mississippi
do?
Avenue in Stanton. ETA 3 minutes. Copy, Charlie 136 en route to Mississippi Avenue in Stanton.
Can you step outside the vehicle, sir?" Can you tell me what I did? Did I do something wrong?"
He asked again as he complied with the officer's order. He figured if he resisted, it would get worse.
Turn around. Place your hands on the hood of the vehicle, please.
A second unit arrived, and Herbert knew he was not getting out of this without a set of handcuffs.
Do you have any sharp objects in your pocket, sir?
No, sir. I don't understand why you pulled me over.
The other officer approached them.
Do you have anything in your vehicle that you need to tell us about?
No, I don't.
So we do have permission to search the vehicle.
The second officer asked. Herbert hesitated. The officer then said,
You know we can call in the warrant. We have all night if you do. Nothing is in my car.
Herbert took a heck of a gamble saying that because he hoped they wouldn't happen to find what was under that seat. The second officer put on gloves while the first officer ordered him to sit on the curb. A third officer arrived. Herbert's heart was drumming in his ears. He'd never been pulled over before, let alone arrested. The second officer found the small Ziploc bag and held it up. They also found marijuana in his vehicle. Herbert knew he was going down. The third officer called for a wrecker to tow the vehicle to impound. The first officer handcuffed him and guided him to his cruiser and placed him in the back seat. He heard him tell the other officers,
I'll book him and take him to 7D.
The sound of the gate slamming behind him jolted him. He sat on the hard surface of the cell and placed his hands over his face. They had already fingerprinted and booked him. Nearly an hour after he'd been placed in his cell, an officer approached.
Herbert Hill, let's go.
Herbert had called the answering service at the studio and informed them he had been arrested. He didn't know they'd gotten the message, but he hoped so. Norman had good connections, and that was his only saving grace. He called Vernon, but Jennifer stated he was out and that she did not know where he was. He called Clyde, but did not get an answer. When he approached the front desk, Norman stood there with two security officers from the company. He suddenly felt shame. He didn't even want to look at Norman. The man had been so generous, and this was the first time he'd ever felt he clearly let someone down. He was given a small bag containing his jewelry and watch. He looked at Norman and said,
Thank you.
How are you?
I could be better, sir.
Okay, let's go.
Norman said, placing his hand slightly on the man's back. Two black Cadillacs sat side by side in the parking lot. They stood out because most of the vehicles in the lot were MPD cruisers. Norman and one of the security officers got in one car, and the other guard escorted Herbert to the other Cadillac. They rode up to Montgomery County and to the studio. By then, it was well after midnight. Herbert thought about his actions as they took the long drive up the Beltway. They entered the gates, entered the building, and rode up to the 5th floor. They walked down a long hallway and opened the door to a conference room. Patrice was there with Human Resources Manager. Everyone sat down, leaving security outside in the hallway. Patrice was the first to speak up. Herbert, a couple of years ago, you and I had a conversation about your drug use.
Patrice, I'm not on drugs.
Don't lie to me, please. As I was saying, I documented that conversation, and I advised you to get yourself together and not hang out in these different neighborhoods. With that said, you cannot return to Preston Records until you complete a rehabilitation program.
If I'm out of the group, what's going to happen to the other guys? We're a 4-member group.
We will talk to the other guys, but as it stands, you are not an asset to this group. Your activities and behavior will bring all of them down.
Besides, we have other artists that can fill in when they tour.
Out the group? I can't believe y'all are doing this to me.
Stop! Do you know what I had to do to make sure this doesn't end up in the paper or on the news? Scandal. They're always looking for scandal, especially from such a polished and successful group as Midnight Velvet. And then I got my company's reputation to think about on this one. You will go to rehab, Herbert. This will be kept private, and you can return afterwards. I think it's only fair. You've been rescued from the eyes of the prime public. You'll thank us for it later.
With that, Norman left the room. Patrice and Human Resources Manager had him complete his paperwork for extended medical leave, and they expected this would never go out in public. After all, Norman had a good reputation. There was only one other incident like this, and that was a musician named Scotty who had been nailed for drug trafficking. Norman was so serious about keeping his company clean that he'd even kicked Scotty's girlfriend, Tessa, out of first delegation. Later, he regretted that decision, especially since he had taken so much heat from the others. Chapter 27. Clyde was jolted awake by his ringing phone. The phone had rung a few times earlier, but he did not answer. Vernon was in the other room sleeping, and he had told Clyde not to answer the phone. Vernon had moved his vehicle to the back of Clyde's house in case Jennifer drove down the street looking for him. But this time, Clyde decided to answer. Who knows, it could have been important, and it was. When he heard Herbert's distressed voice over the phone, he sat up in bed.
Whoa. Back up, Herbert. Back up. They what?
They sending me to rehab, man.
Who's sending you to rehab?
Norman and Patrice.
Man, I told you. What happened?
I got arrested tonight.
Nah, man. Well, how did they find out? How did Norman and Patrice find this out?
I had to call up to the studio and leave a message with the answering service. That was my only hope. You were not answering your phone. Jennifer said Vernon wasn't home. And then I had
Vern is here. He's here.
He's dead. Why is he over there?
It's a long story. I'll let him tell you.
Well, they said I cannot return to the group until I complete rehab. I still think I should be able to record, though, you know?
Herb, drug addiction is a medical issue. You need to get yourself together.
But what about y'all? I mean, I'm thinking about y'all, too,
We'll
man.
be okay. We're going to be fine.
Clyde thought about how many times the lineup changed with first delegation. Tessa was removed from the group, then their cousin joined. Cartier left the group, then the other sister Tawanda joined. Before long, all 7 sisters would have had a place in the group. He almost laughed.
We'll be okay, Herb. You really need to get yourself together. Your health is important.
Clyde was able to fall asleep again. It seemed he just closed his eyes when he heard Vernon calling out to him. He opened his eyes. It was daylight. Vernon was fully dressed and looked like he was ready to leave. Clyde got out of bed and headed downstairs behind his friend.
Are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay.
Vernon said, momentarily closing his eyes. The friends embraced.
Call me if you need anything.
Thanks, buddy.
Chapter 28. After getting some sleep, he felt much better, but he did not feel good sitting in rush hour traffic on the Beltway. But this did give him more time to calm down and think. He finally pulled into the driveway of his 5-bedroom home. All of this for nothing. All he had accomplished only to end up being cheated on. He opened the front door. Jennifer was sitting at the table in the dining room. When she realized he was there, she headed into the living room.
Vernon, I just want to... How many times? How many times, Jennifer?
Vernon, I'm so
How many?
sorry. I'm so sorry.
How many? How many?
Vernon, can you just listen?
How
Can I just
many?
apologize for?
How many?
His voice cut through the room. He was thankful his girls were spending the summer in Pennsylvania and did not have to witness this. Finally, she said, "Twice."
Goodness. When was the other incident?
She closed the distance. He turned his back on her. Vernon, I can explain
Get off of
how...
me. Were my kids here when you did it that other time?
He said after he snatched away from her. No, they were not here. That brought him some relief, and he released a sigh. Vernon, you're always touring, and I feel so alone. You care more about your career and that role than you do us.
So, you saying that this is my fault? You cheating is my fault?
I'm not saying that. I just got lonely. I'm sorry.
You bring a man into the home that I bought for you and my kids. My kids, Jennifer, they sleep in the room down the hall from where you and some man...
He couldn't even finish his statement. I know I was wrong. I'm sorry, Vernon. He did not know what else to say. The pain eclipsed any thoughts or words. He headed to the den, turned on the TV. She followed and sat in the chair across from him. No one said anything for nearly an hour, but Jennifer could no longer stand it. What are we going to do, Vernon? Are you going to leave me, or do you want me to leave? He still loved her. That's why this was so painful. To see a man on top of his wife was a scene that would be burned into his memory for the rest of his life. She began crying again. Vernon, what can I do to show you I'm sorry? What can I do?
Let me ask you something. Are you sorry because I caught you? Or are you sorry because...
No. I'm sorry because I was wrong. I'm sorry because I love you. I don't want my family to break apart. Vernon, please. I will forgive you. I made a mistake. I should not have done that.
Where did you meet this dude at?
He's a manager at the Safeway where I shop. I can go all the way to this Safeway in Gaithersburg. I don't even have to shop at that Safeway no more.
A grocery store manager?
He said before using the remote to change the channel. Jennifer kept silent. Later, Clyde called to check on his friend, and he told him about Herbert's situation.
I really didn't want to weigh you down with all of that so early in the morning. That's why I didn't say anything before you left. So do you know where he's located? Norman said he'll let us know. I talked to Patrice this morning. So do Tom know? I called him too. He's coming up this weekend. I hope you don't mind that I told him about your situation too. Nah, it's cool. But Clyde, yeah, I think I'm going to take a break from music. I need to get my head together. You quitting? No, man, don't quit. Not quitting. I was thinking that maybe I should focus on my family for a while. We've been touring a lot. Maybe I have been neglecting Jen. So y'all gonna work it out.
Vernon did not know at the moment. All he knew was that this woman had supported his dreams, aspirations, and goals for years. No matter how crazy his ideas were, she was right there. But what about her dreams? What about her career? She had always taken care of the children while he traveled or worked. The thought of coming home and she's not there was a reality that hit him pretty hard. The question was not whether or not he could forgive her. The question was, should he forgive her?
I'm thinking about working it out. That's what's up. You know I'm already in your corner. You know Jennifer is a good woman. She made a mistake. How many times do we mess up and they take us back? We sing songs about it all the time, don't we?
Yeah, we do. You have a point there.
But take your time, Vern.
So, Clyde, what are you going to do in the meantime?
I don't know right this moment, but Tom and I were kicking around some ideas. You know, the company is growing. They're talking about adding studios for TV shows and whatnot.
Oh, for real? Now, see, that's what I'm talking about right there.
Yeah, Patrice told me. You know, me and her are tight.
I see.
Patrice was 27 years old at that point, 5 years younger than Clyde, but she was so mature, as if she were his own age.
So she's been offering up some ideas about moving forward with this. I'm not quitting entertainment. I'm sticking with Preston.
That's good, man. You keep pushing forward.
Yeah, and I'll see you on the other side of the struggle. But remember, we are still in this together, and if you need anything, you just let me know, brother.
Thanks. And we'll hang out when Tom gets here.
Yeah, you know that's a bet. See you at the next intersection.